Hi guys, it's me, Chaser HD, and welcome to the qualifying watch-along for the 2019 Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. And qualifying is absolutely going ahead early on in Sunday morning at Suzuka, currently, right now local time. And of course, for me, it is right now 1 a.m. local time. So qualifying is going ahead, and I cannot wait for qualifying. And of course, the race is only taking place a few hours after qualifying, so today is going to be a very hectic, chaotic, and very, very exciting day. And hopefully you guys will join me for all of it today, no matter where you're on the world, whether you're in North America, South America, Asia, Australia, Africa, Europe, the UK, no matter where you're on the world. Hopefully you're doing well on what is for me a very, very early Sunday morning. And hope you'll enjoy qualifying and later on the race with me as well. And also Nib will not be joining us for qualifying, but he will be joining us later on for the Grand Prix. But again, great news. Qualifying is on. The Typhoon did make landfall yesterday, but it hasn't done, I don't think, that much damage to the surrounding area of Suzuka. And at the moment at Suzuka, it is a bit windy, but it's clear sunshine. So we are going to get qualifying and the race today. And that is, of course, great news. But as we normally do in the build up to qualifying, let's now preview how I think the teams are going to do in qualifying today. Now, first off, let's go to Mercedes. Now, in practice 1 and 2 on Friday, they looked very, very strong, even though Mercedes later came out and admitted that they turned their power units up a lot more than Ferrari did. So it's not going to be a clear 1-2 in qualifying today for this team. They're going to have a big fight on their hands if they're going to get pole position and later on the race victory in the race. So I think they're looking good. They've got a good car, and also I think the upgrades that they have on their car, the new side deflectors on the just in front of the side pod and just behind the barge board area, I think those are working for them. We'll see confirmation later on today whether they are working if they do get pole and win the race. But it's going to be a close fight. But, they have a great record here, do the Silver Arrows. They've won so many races here since the V6 hybrid era began. And they have dominated this Grand Prix. So if you were going to bet on them, it wouldn't be that bad of a bet, would it? Because they are very, very strong at this track. And they do look very, very confident of what they have compared to Ferrari and Red Bull going into qualifying and the Grand Prix. But another thing I want to talk about before we get to the rest of the teams that I was going to talk about in the intro, but I forgot. Because you've had rain overnight, of course, or not only overnight, but, for the entire day of Saturday yesterday, that's going to make the track conditions very difficult. One, because all the rubber these teams laid down on Friday will no longer be there. It will be a completely green track because it's had no running since the rain stopped, during last night at Suzuka. So the drivers and teams are in for a tricky day because they don't quite know what to expect in terms of grip when, they're pushing their cars at the absolute most, especially in qualifying. And because of the wind, I don't know how much wind there is at the track today, but from what I've heard, it is a quite windy day. So the track conditions today are going to be quite difficult. Even though it is, clear sunshine, it's not going to be the easiest of days because the track conditions are going to be very similar to practice 1, where there's not going to be a lot of grip out there and they're not going to be able to throw the car about like they would if we had had a completely dry weekend and we had, 3 practice sessions before qualifying. So going to be a very difficult session for sure for the drivers and teams. Next up is Ferrari. Now, Ferrari have come out and admitted that they have been, so far this weekend, saving power. They've not been pushing too hard in the practice sessions for 2 reasons. One, because they don't want to show their true pace. And 2, I think they're conserving their power units because of the reliability issue they had with Sebastian Vettel in Russia. So Ferrari have not shown their true hand as of yet this weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised, guys, to be honest, if they did get pole position, because they do have the type of car around this track that you do need to be good at this track, because in the fast corners, Ferrari still have a very good car, but also in the second half of the lap, where it's mostly about power, of course, Ferrari are the best at that. So even if Mercedes have made a good step with the new parts they put on their car, I still think Ferrari are very strong looking for qualifying, and I wouldn't be that surprised if they got pole position or if they locked out the front row, because they do have a good car. The only thing, or two things I guess, that's really going to be a difficult thing for them in qualifying is, one, the track conditions being green. Ferrari don't tend to go well on green circuits. When I say green circuits, I mean when they come to a track, later on the weekend where it's been raining, once it dries up, they don't tend to be that great, Ferrari. Normally, Ferrari do go well on a Grand Prix weekend where lots of rubber is built up. That's just the way it has been for Ferrari in the past few years. And, if the track in areas is a bit damp, you will need a bit more downforce to cope with those damp areas of the track. And still, Ferrari, despite improving their car, they're still not great when it comes to grip in the corners. So even if they do get pole and have a good day today, it's not going to be the easiest day for Ferrari. They're going to have to really work for it and be basically near perfect if they're going to get pole position and later on the race victory. But I think Ferrari in the dry, they do have a good car at this track. They just need to make sure that they do get the best laps they can in qualifying. Next up, out of the top teams, is Red Bull. With Max Verstappen, I think there is a possibility that they can have a good qualifying, because Max is very strong at this track, and the Red Bull car goes better here than it does at tracks like Sochi or Monza or Spa, the past few races we've had. So I think Red Bull can do well today, but again, it does depend on how the Red Bull, grips up in qualifying on the new green track, how Max Verstappen copes with it. It does depend on a couple of things, but if the Red Bull car is working well out of the box and Max Verstappen is able to really throw it in there and just push straight away in qualifying, despite there being not a lot of grip, then I think Max Verstappen is a dark horse, not only for a possible, say, top 2 or top 3 in qualifying, but maybe even a race win later on in the race in a few hours' time. So look out for Max Verstappen and Red Bull. They are the dark horse of that top team battle for sure. Alex Albon in the other Red Bull has actually looked a lot better this weekend. That's good to see. If he can be, 2.5 to 3 tenths of a second off his teammate Max Verstappen, then I think Albon can end up in a okay enough grid position going into the Grand Prix later on. I was about to say tomorrow. That's just how used I am, of course, to qualifying taking place on a Saturday. But yeah, I think Red Bull do have a good car. The only big bad thing for them, I guess, in qualifying is, again, the lack of power they have in their qualifying engine mode compared to Ferrari and Mercedes. So I don't think they can quite fight for pole, but later on when it comes to the race, don't be surprised if Max Verstappen can really go out there and fight for the race victory. But guys, before we get into the midfield and preview how I think that they are going to do, let me know right now, guys, in the live chat, the top teams, how do you think they'll do, and what drivers out of the top teams do you expect to be, very good today given the conditions? Let me know in the live chat and I'll make sure to read out your comments in a moment. Just want to say, don't forget to subscribe for more watch-alongs like this, as we will be live at 5 a.m. UK time, so in about 4 hours time, for the race watch-along, for of course the hours build up, then the race, and then the reaction just after it. So don't forget to subscribe for that. You can do it on the bottom right of the screen, or go to my homepage and do it there, and hit the notifications bell for that stream coming up later on. And also, hit the like button because it does help up the channel in terms of it growing, and it does help me see that you guys do like the content. But with just under 50 minutes to go until qualifying, let's see what some of you guys have to say. And great to see, by the way, 137 of you already here. I'll be especially impressed if it's, early in the morning wherever you are. So hopefully we can have some of you here. But let's see what you guys have to say. Jack Priestley, is qualifying going to happen? Yes, it is. It is confirmed. It will be happening in just under 50 minutes time. See what your comments say here. Mango Gamer, Mercedes will go good but not enough for pole position. Again, it's going to be close. It's really going to be close, I think, at the top. Crystal Racing Amaze Balls being up at this time, 1:10 a.m. Yep. Let's look at some other comments here. Yep, 2:10 of the night in Germany. So, yep. I don't really mind what the time is. If this was for every Grand Prix, I would still do this because, again, no matter what the time is, I will be up covering it for you guys because it's Formula 1. I don't really mind what time it is. But, yeah, this is going to be a bit of a difficult day in terms of getting stuff ready for me. But I will definitely get it all done today for you guys because I cannot wait to cover qualifying and the race in, what, a 7-hour period. Yeah, it's going to be good. Let's look at some other comments from you guys here. Dexter Hall says Merck's long run pace is over 1 second a lap. Again, though, the track conditions are going to be different today to how they were in practice 2. Because in practice 2, there was a bit of rubber down after practice 1, and the weather conditions were different. It was a still humid, overcast kind of day. Today, there is no grip on the track. There will be, obviously rubber down after qualifying, but there won't be as much confidence going into the race or grip going into the race as there were going into practice 2. But also there's wind that wasn't there in practice 2. So I don't think we can massively pay attention to the long run pace on Friday because, again, the weather conditions are so different compared to Friday. And it's almost like we've come to a different Grand Prix today because, again, the weather conditions are so different. We're probably going to get a different result from what the long run pace on Friday did suggest, whether that's for the race or qualifying. Right, let's find a couple more comments and then we'll move on to the midfield. Find Bruce Segal saying Bottas on pole. It is possible. Valtteri actually is very good at Suzuka. He's always been quick here, so don't be surprised if he's up there. And Michael Arvin saying, Chazza, thank you for doing what you do each race, let alone what you will have to complete in 7 hours. Chazza is the new Murray Walker. Thank you very, very much for that, Michael. And thank you to Nicola Fox as well. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I do have a very busy 7 hours. I've got to do the qualifying watch-along, which we'll do in the next hour and 45 minutes. That's how much more of the stream we have left. Then there'll be a qualifying review about half an hour after qualifying finishes. And then I've got an hour and a half to set the race watch-along up. Then we'll do the race watch-along for about 3 hours. And then about half an hour after that will be a race review. So yeah, I have a very, very busy 7 to 8 hours, but I really appreciate you saying I'm the new Murray Walker. But also I just want to pay tribute to Murray Walker because he celebrated on, I think, Friday or Thursday, I can't exactly remember, his 96th birthday. So happy birthday to him. He is absolutely, for any commentator like me in the Formula 1 or motorsport world, he is one of, if not the biggest inspiration. So happy birthday to him. He truly is a legend of Formula 1, and not just Formula 1, but broadcasting, basically. Right, let's find one final comment if we can. And Jordan Hill asks, do you think Red Bull can win? Again, I do, but it does depend kind of on Max Verstappen's grid position. He has to be starting a bit higher up than let's say Red Bull are expecting. So it does really depend on qualifying, but he can win for sure. I think, if you look at the last 2 or 3 races at Suzuka, if he had the best car, which he didn't in the last 2 or 3 years of this track in the races, he could have won the races quite easily. But I think, yeah, he can definitely win the race. Just depends on qualifying. And if he can get a top 3 grid slot, I think it really is a possibility. But I think now we'll move on to the midfield and first go on to Renault. Renault in practice 2 did finish in P17 and P18, but I did stress during that stream, by the way, if you haven't seen the practice 2 stream, link below in the description, I did stress that that's not their true pace, and they even came out and said that's not their true pace, because in practice 2, they did those laps very early on in the session when other teams did their laps much later on in the session. Renault do have a car that can be on the 4th row of the grid, absolutely. Whether they'll get that or not, I don't know. They should get both cars into the top 10 as long as the drivers keep it on track and get the best out of the car. And I think they'll do that. I think the Renaults will be fine. I think Renault will end up with both cars in the top 10. I'm not quite sure they'll end up locking out the 4th row, but they're going to be right there with McLaren. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. It's going to be very similar to Russia, the midfield, especially the midfield battle at the very front. It's going to be McLaren and Renault at the front of that midfield pack. So, yeah, look out for Renault in qualifying to see if they can beat McLaren in qualifying, and hopefully then later on in the race they can actually convert that into a proper result, because that's something that Renault have struggled to do basically not every race, but nearly every race this season. They've really struggled to convert good qualifying results into something good on, I was going to say on the Sunday. We are on a Sunday, later on in the Grand Prix. Next up is McLaren. McLaren, they'll be in the top 10 with both cars. I think Lando Norris is at risk of getting knocked out, not because the car's not good enough, but really because he doesn't have that much experience of Suzuka. I mean, he's only done, 2 or 3 sessions at Suzuka? So compared to, experienced drivers like Perez, Grosjean, Magnussen, Raikkonen, drivers he'll be contending for the top 10 in qualifying, he will be under threat. But as long as he can, do the best he can, get the best out of the car, he should be in the top 10 with teammate Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, he'll do fine. He'll get in the top 10 because Carlos historically has been good here, and he loves tracks like this where you really just have to attack the track. Carlos is very good at circuits like that. And yeah, McLaren, I think they'll be fine. It's going to be tough, though, for them to lock out the 4th row. If they can lock out the 4th row, then I think McLaren are in for a very good race result. But it's going to be very close between them and Renault, because you have to remember as well, Renault do have 2 drivers who do go well at Suzuka. So it is going to be a very tough and very tight battle with McLaren, or with Renault, sorry, for McLaren. It should be actually a very good battle as well. So definitely look out for that once we get into qualifying and later on the Grand Prix as well. Next up is Alfa Romeo. Alfa have had an okay weekend, I think, so far. Practice 1, they had a reliability issue of Antonio Giovinazzi. Practice 2, the running was smooth, but the pace wasn't exactly amazing. Raikkonen did end up in P10, but again, he did his lap a lot later than other people. So I don't know if that is a genuine pace for Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo. I will say, though, I think Kimi will be in there for getting in the top 10 because, he's raced here for so long, Kimi Raikkonen. He knows exactly, where to place his car, where to get the best out of the car, and how to get the best out of himself at a track like this. So I think Kimi will be good. Hopefully Antonio Giovinazzi at his first ever time at Suzuka doesn't get daunted by the tough challenge he's about to have in trying to out-qualify teammate Raikkonen and get the best out of the Alfa Romeo car. But I think Alfa, if both drivers do the best they can, I think they could probably, end up P11, P12, which isn't that bad for the race, because then, of course, they can start on whatever tyre they want to. And Alfa, historically this season, when they've started outside the top 10, or, right outside the top 10, and they can start on whatever tyre they want to, historically this season, they've been able then to convert that into a points finish. So Alfa will be okay today. They don't have the best car in the midfield, nowhere near it, but they'll be all right today. They'll be in there for sure with teams like Haas and Racing Point and Toro Rosso. I will say, though, behind McLaren and Renault, it is very, very close in that, say, lower midfield pack between Alfa, Racing Point, Haas and Toro Rosso. Very, very close, and it's going to be very close in deciding the grid between, say, P11 and P18, maybe even P10 and P18. So, yeah, the midfield going to be very, very tight today. Great to see. Next up is Haas F1. Haas are basically the same as Alfa Romeo in terms of pace. They're right around where Alfa are, P12, P13 at best, P11. But I will say, I think Haas do have a better chance of a better result in qualifying, because both drivers do historically go well at Suzuka. For example, Romain Grosjean, this is one of his best tracks in Formula 1. He is always very quick here. He had great results here in the past in qualifying in the race. In 2012, he qualified in P3 or P4. In 2015, he finished in the points in a Lotus that wasn't really that good of a car. And I think in the last 3 Japanese Grand Prix, I think he's finishing the points for Haas F1. So Roman, I think, will be quite quick today. Not sure if it'll be quick enough to get into the top 10, but look out for Romain Grosjean. And also Kevin Magnussen, I think he, does like this track. He hasn't had as good a results around here as Romain Grosjean, but this is a type of track, that K-Mag does like. A track you've got to attack, really throw the car into the corners. That's the type of circuit that Kevin, really does like. So I think if Haas do get a good result, it's most likely going to come from the drivers getting the best out of the car, more so than, the Haas car being great today. But of course, we'll see in just over 35 minutes time. Next up, Toro Rosso. Of course, it is a home race, kind of, because of their engine supplier Honda. Same for Red Bull, of course. So Toro Rosso will be looking to do well alongside Red Bull. And I think Toro Rosso will do well today, because if you compare it to the last Grand Prix, Sochi, they do go better at Suzuka than they do at the Russian Grand Prix track. And I think this type of track does just suit their car better. And both drivers, I think, like this track a lot more in terms of their pace around it than Sochi as well. So Toro Rosso, they're going to be in there. If you look at practice 2, Toro Rosso were very competitive with teams like Racing Point and even McLaren at times. So I think Toro Rosso are kind of a dark horse. I wouldn't say they are the dark horse from the midfield. We'll get onto the dark horse from the midfield in a moment, but they could provide a surprise result. They really, really could, and it would be great if they could, because, of course, they're only 13 or 15 points behind Renault in the Constructors for P5, and they do still have a good chance of getting it. So hopefully Toro Rosso can, really, get the best out of the car and maybe end up in a better position than we're all expecting. We'll see in qualifying very soon. And yeah, going to Racing Point, this team, in my opinion, is the dark horse of the midfield, because in practice 1 and 2, Racing Point were really quick. A lot quicker, in fact, than I was thinking. And I thought Racing Point this weekend would probably go slightly better than they did in Russia. So yeah, Racing Point looking good. And I think outside of McLaren and Renault, Perez and Stroll, maybe not so much Stroll, but Perez for sure, is the most likely driver to get into the top 10 out of Alfa, Haas, Toro Rosso, and, of course, Perez's teammate Lance Stroll. They do have a fundamentally good car. In practice, the car did look very nicely balanced and very quick even on low fuel, which for them is a bit of a surprise because normally Racing Point can be a bit too slow at times when it comes to pace over a single lap, and then in the race pace, they tend to claw that back. But yeah, pace over a single lap, it looked pretty good for Racing Point on Friday. So if they can replicate that, then I think Perez, and if Stroll can keep up the speed he had in practice 1 and 2, maybe Racing Point are in for a surprise, good, double top 10 at best. That really could happen. Again, if you look at how they did in practice 1 and practice 2 from Friday. Racing Point, good to see that they do now finally, after earlier on the season, have a good car, because there were so many races around France, Austria, Silverstone where they just weren't making any progress. But now they put some more parts on the car, basically brought a completely new car after the German Grand Prix. Racing Point are now properly in the midfield fight, and it is, of course, great to see. And the final team is Williams, and of course they'll be at the back. One thing though to say with Williams, I didn't know coming into the weekend that Robert Kubica, and I think Russell as well, they were doing full-on testing in practice 1 and 2 of a new front wing, which is not just a new front wing, but it's a new front wing that's probably going to be the front wing for 2020. So Williams are, really starting to, I wouldn't say get on top of development for 2020, but they are, developing nicely, a lot more nicely than they were going into 2019 in the back end of 2018 this time last year. So good to see that Williams, they're trying to build a better car that the drivers can actually do well in for 2020. But I don't believe, from what I've heard, that Williams are going to use that new front wing in qualifying and the race, because there's only one of that new front wing that they brought to this Grand Prix. So there's no real point in racing it when you don't have, a proper replacement, or you only have one of them. So I think that is a wise decision. But before we get into later on, guys, my predictions for the top 3 and top 5 really in qualifying today at the 2019 Japanese Grand Prix. Let me know right now in the live chat for the midfield, who do you think will do well today and not so well? Who do you think will be the dark horse in the midfield? Who do you think we need to look out for? And who do you think out of Renault, McLaren, Alfa, Haas, Toro Rosso and Racing Point, who do you think will finish at the front of that midfield pack? Let me know right now in the live chat. And for the next 10 minutes, I'll read out your comments before, again, we get into the predictions of what I think will happen in qualifying, which gets underway in, 30 minutes time. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Again, great to see so many of you here. Now 245 of you. Very good to see you all here. Aurelio says McLaren. Caleb says Racing Point. Crystal Racing says Alpha, even though I think that's more hope than expectation. But it would be nice to see, Alpha get a bit better compared to how they've been doing the last couple of races, because Alpha, you cannot deny, I think after Spa, where they just completely fell apart in terms of the result they got, they've just not really done anything. Monza, they did get a points finish, but they could have had way more than what they got. Singapore, they got a point, but again, could have been a lot more than what they got. And Russia, they just fundamentally didn't have a good car for that track. So hopefully Alpha can return to the kind of form they were at around Hungary or Spa, or even before Hungary. So see if, maybe Alpha can return to that bit of form. But the reason Alpha have dropped off this season is because of inconsistency. Right, let's see what you guys are saying. Tonka says Renault is like a box of chocolates. Indeed. Aurelio saying Grosjean will come in with the early crash. Even though I don't want to predict it, you have to say those two Haas drivers, they are very prone to crashes, and it wouldn't be a surprise if one of them, say, pushing too hard, trying to get into the next part of qualifying, ended up crashing. And that's another thing that I forgot to talk about in the intro is if you have a crash in qualifying that's big, you're not going to make the race. You're not going to make the race. And I think, was it Nico Hülkenberg in qualifying and Marcus Ericsson in qualifying in 2018 who had big crashes in qualifying? If that happens again for, Hülkenberg and, I don't know, Giovinazzi or Magnussen or Grosjean or whoever, then I don't think they're going to make the race because they only have, once qualifying finishes, there's only 3 hours to go until the race actually starts. So you've got to push today, but you can't push too hard because if you do in qualifying and end up binning it really hard into the wall or the barriers, your complete weekend is over. And Suzuka this weekend is a waste of time. So again, that factor rather does make qualifying today quite a tough thing for the drivers. EZ says, still don't trust Ferrari. I know what you mean. Coming into this weekend, I thought Ferrari, and I still think Ferrari do have the best car in the dry in qualifying conditions. But them getting the result they should get in the race is so much more difficult for some reason than it is for Mercedes or Red Bull. And I think we know why. It's because from an operational point of view, Ferrari are just so error prone. They make so many mistakes for a team that is a top team. And that's why in 2019, 2018 and the back end of 2017, they've just had a torrid time compared to what they should have been doing, which is winning a lot more races, getting a lot more pole positions, and probably winning a world championship in there. So I understand what you mean, and I do agree with you somewhat. Right, let's look at some other comments here from you guys. Crystal Racing saying, looks like there'll be a few tentative quali laps then. Good thinking, Chaz. Yeah. For the top teams, I don't think you're going to see Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Vettel, Verstappen, throwing the car into Degner 1. Because if you throw it into Degner 1 and you go right off on the exit of Degner 2 and really hard into the barriers, then you're out of the race. And it's also going to take, if you crash at that point of the track, quite a bit of time to get the car back to the pits in the first place. So I don't think you're going to see the top teams especially pushing really hard until the first lap of Q3. I think the midfield, they'll be pushing very, very hard as soon as qualifying begins, but those top drivers, they've got to be careful. They cannot afford to start throwing the car about in Q1 when they know they're going to get through, even if they did a very, say, easy cruising type lap. So those top drivers, they've got to be very smart in terms of how they conduct their qualifying through Q1, Q2, and Q3. Because, in the S's, if you, as I said in my track guide, in my preview, if you get slightly offline, if you touch one of the curves a bit too hard, you're in the barriers and you're out of qualifying. And today, especially, you cannot afford to do that because you'll probably be, at best, struggling to make the race, and that's not something that you want to happen. But find some other comments here. Say Rugara, Haas is the worst team of the season, to be honest. Well, if you're not counting Williams, I guess so. In the midfield, I'd say, yeah, Haas have been the worst midfield team simply because they've built a car that on its day in qualifying, I was about to say in qualifying on a Saturday, on on its day in qualifying, that Haas can be easily the best car in the midfield. But on a Sunday this season, it's been pathetic. So you'd have to say that Haas, yeah, they've been the worst midfield team. They have been the worst team. Williams have been the worst team. I know they don't have a ton of cash, but you know, the way Williams have been in the last year or so, or even longer, they've just been even more pathetic. But yeah, not been a good season for Haas. But again, as I said in my preview on Thursday, Haas are getting there. They are improving. If you look at the last few races, Haas are improving. Their car is improving on race day, and that's all that matters. As long as Haas improve their car when it comes to pace in the Grand Prix and improve on the results they were getting before in the Grand Prix, say before the summer break, then that's all that matters. Because at this point, you'd have to say that Haas are concentrating on building a car that can be consistent in qualifying and the race for 2020, because if they go into 2020 with a similar car to this year, it's going to be the same result. They're just going to end up rarely getting in the points. I mean, this season, they've only finished in the points like 4 or 5 times, which is quite bad, especially for a team that was almost finishing 4th in the Constructors in 2018. So yeah, Haas have not been too smart in 2019. Let's find a couple more comments, I think. Then we'll get on to my predictions. And make sure, guys, to get yours ready. Edgar Phelan, I think it is. So, sorry if I mispronounced your last name. He asks, do you think the inter-team battle at Ferrari will hurt them into next year? I am actually going to do a video about this, probably in the winter break between, of course, the end of 2019 and going into 2020 about this subject. But right here, right now, I'd have to say yes. If I was Ferrari, I would probably let the drivers race it out until Hockenheim or Hungary. You know, the end, or not Hockenheim. Hockenheim's not on the calendar, is it? Race it out, you know, until Hungary, the summer break point. And then after that, decide who is the number one in the team going forward to the end of 2020? If Ferrari are in a position in the first place to even contend for the World Championship. But you can't go into the season, I think, 2020, already designating a number one driver, because if that number one then underperforms in the first half of 2020, then you're in big trouble. So I think Ferrari should just let it go for the first half of the season. Then at the summer break point, they can say, right, this driver's ahead by this many points. He's a number one till the end of the season. End of. But first off, Ferrari have got to build a car that's quick enough. There's no point arguing over who's the number one in the team if your car's not quick enough to even contend for a world title in the first place. So getting the car right has to be the priority at the moment. Let me find one final comment, and then we'll get into the predictions for qualifying. Aurelio, are they both locked for 2020? Yep, they are. Let me find one final one. Crystal Racing, Haas resigned K-Mag and Grosjean because Rich Energy exposed them. Their B-team model of outsourcing their chassis from Dallara and parts from Ferrari is lame. I will say for Haas F1, not for 2020 or 2021, but if Haas want to make a real impression in Formula 1 and want to be a proper strong team going forward into 2025, 2026 and in the 2030s even, they've got to get away eventually from this model of letting Dallara and Ferrari basically control their parts and stuff like that. They've got to eventually become a proper Formula 1 team, because Haas are not really a proper team. As Crystal Racing said, with the amount of parts they have designed for them, or the amount of parts they borrow, they're not a real team yet. I know they've only been in Formula 1 for 4 seasons now, but if they want to become a real strong outfit in Formula 1, they've got to eventually get away from that model, because they're not ever going to be a podium contending team with that model. They're never going to be a podium contending team ever with a model like that. But anyway, now with 20 minutes to go, until qualifying gets underway. It's now time for me to make my predictions for qualifying today. Now, these predictions are not based on practice 1 and practice 2, because again, the running so far, in practice 1 and practice 2 doesn't really matter that much. And also, because the track today is going to be green, I don't think we can really say that, Bottas and Hamilton are going to be on the front row because of practice 2, because again, the track conditions are completely different. So these predictions, the top 3 I'm going for, is based on what I thought coming into the weekend. Then, of course, I'll base my race predictions based off what happens in qualifying. So, on pole position, I think will be Charles Leclerc, because I do think Ferrari, not, comfortably or dominantly have the best car, but I think have just about a better car in qualifying trim for this type of track. And I think you will see them, especially in qualifying 3, really going for it and really looking great in this qualifying session. I think Charles Leclerc will get pole, because Leclerc in qualifying since I think it was the French Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc has been on another level compared to how he was in the first 6 or 7 races of 2019 or even 2018 with Sauber. So I think Charles Leclerc will get pole position. If he does, though, of course, it'll be his first ever pole in Japan. But Ferrari are going for their first pole position in Japan since, get this, 2006. Historically, this has not been that great of a track for Ferrari, or a country for Ferrari, to have pole positions and race victories, because again, they haven't had a pole since 2006, and that year it was a front row lockout from Felipe Massa and Michael Schumacher, and that was the weekend where, of course, Michael lost the chance to win his 8th World Championship. So, long time ago since Ferrari tasted pole position, and history is definitely against them, I think, also going into the race, because if Leclerc gets into pole position, as I'll talk about later on in the race watch along a few hours later, Ferrari haven't won this race since 2004. Again, history is really against them. In P2, though, I'm going to go for Lewis Hamilton. 2 reasons. 1, because I think the car is still good here. Maybe not as good as a Ferrari, but it's still good. And Lewis Hamilton is very good at Suzuka. He's won 4 of the last 5 races here, and this is the type of track that a driver like him just excels at, because he attacks the track and is so brilliantly skillful in how he places his car. And I think Lewis, even if he's not in pole position, he will do a good job in qualifying today. If he does get pole, though, it'll be his 3rd pole at Suzuka, 4th in Japan, of course, one of them. 5th in Japan, if he does get pole, because he had 2 in Fuji in 2007 and 2008. But if he does get pole today, it'll be his 3rd at Suzuka. But the team, Mercedes, are going for their 6th consecutive pole position in Japan. And as I said earlier, they have dominated this Grand Prix since the V6 hybrid era began. So if they do get pole, it won't be the biggest surprise we've seen, in 2019. And then, in P3, I'm going to go for Max Verstappen, because I think the Red Bull will be a bit better than people are thinking in this session. I think the Red Bull will handle well on the green track, and Max is a very good driver around this track for the same reasons really as Lewis Hamilton. He's aggressive, and that's what this track really does favour, a good aggressive driver that's also very precise in how he places his car. And I think Max will be fine. I think he'll do very well and qualify in P3, because he is so strong at this track. If he does get pole, though, it'll be his 1st ever in Japan. And Red Bull are going for their 1st pole at this circuit, or at this Grand Prix, since 2013. That year, it was Mark Webber on pole position, and that weekend they got a 1-2 finish as well. So, good omen if he does get pole, because they're probably going to go on to win the race as well, because I think historically every time Red Bull have got pole here, they've won the race. Maybe one year they didn't, but most of the times they have. But guys, with 15 minutes to go until qualifying, let me know right now in the live chat for the final 15 minutes, who is getting pole position? Finishing in second, finishing in third, P4, P5, P6, and if you want to do the top 10, then go ahead and do so. But yeah, let me know in the live chat, and I'll read out your predictions in a moment. Just want to say, though, for P4, P5, P6, and the rest of the top 10, I'm going to go Vettel in P4, Bottas in P5, Albon P6, and then P7, I'll go Daniel Ricciardo. P8, Carlos Sainz, P9, Hülkenberg, and P10, I will go with Lando Norris, only just ahead of drivers like Perez and Raikkonen. Yeah, going to be a good top 10, I think, there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the chat. Again, though, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as we will be live in, just over 2 hours from now, or just over 3 hours from now, sorry, for the race Watchalong for the 2019 Japanese Grand Prix. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for that video coming out later on for the race. You can do it on the bottom right of the screen in terms of subscribing, and also go to the homepage and hit the notifications bell. And also don't forget to smash the like button. But considering I've done about 45 minutes of this stream, I think it's time I had a drink, because you guys know my throat can get a bit sore during these streams. So I'm going to have a quick drink, and then I'll come to the chat and read all your predictions out in a moment. And also move on to this picture of Valtteri Bottas. And now let's see what you guys think is going to happen. So let me find the first one, then we'll read them all out. Good morning, by the way, to JB. Great to see you, mate. Let me find the first one. We'll read all of them out. And where is the first one? Find it. There you go. Harith Zach. He says Bottas on pole, Hamilton second, Leclerc third, Verstappen fourth, Vettel fifth, and in the race he goes Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc. Diver's Paradise 69 hopes for Lewis Hamilton on pole. Tonka, of course, one of our mods. He says Lewis, Leclerc, Bottas, Max Vettel. M. Fanello, excellent, I think it is, says 1-2 for Mercedes. Connor says Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel, Leclerc. Mango says Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton. What else have we got here? Find another one if I can. Just scrolled past one. There you go. Crystal Racing says Bottas, Hamilton, Vettel, Leclerc, Max Albon. JB says Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Vettel, Verstappen, Albon, Sainz, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Perez. OK says Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Vettel, Albon, Norris, Ricciardo, Perez. Logan Jones says Hamilton, Bottas, Max, Leclerc, Vettel. A lot of you going for a Mercedes pole position. Again, not too surprised, but interesting to see. Also, some of you going for a Ferrari pole, so probably going to be close, isn't it? Nicola Fox says Vettel on pole from Leclerc second, Max third, Lewis fourth, Bottas fifth, and then Sainz, Albon, Norris, Ricciardo. Jordan Hill says Max, Albon, Lewis, Vettel, Charles. By the way, good morning to pole position F1, who says good morning from America, Ohio. Hello to you. Hopefully you're doing well. Cornwall says Max, Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Vettel. Say Rugara says Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen, Albon. Let me just move on to a different picture, then I'll read out others. There you go. Nice shot of the Mission Winnow Ferrari. By the way, that sponsor is back this weekend. I don't know why. I think it's probably because of the laws of Japan when it comes to advertising that certain thing. But yeah, that sponsor is back on the car, and I think we will see it again also in 2019. D's Nuts Gaming, great name. There's Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen, Vettel, Bottas, Sainz, Albon, Norris, Perez, Hülkenberg. Sergio C says Hamilton. JB asks, sorry, when are you gonna catch up on your sleep, Chaz? Well, my sleeping pattern, I have converted it into a sleeping pattern as if I was at the track. So, this morning or Saturday morning, UK time, I went asleep at about 8 a.m. UK time, and then I woke up at about 7 p.m. UK time on Saturday night. So I'm basically operating on their time, which is why I'll be fine for my sleep and stuff like that when it comes to the Grand Prix. So I'll be absolutely fine. But yeah, once all the videos and strings are all done, I'm sure I'll be absolutely knackered after the 4 videos we're doing in 8 hours. Right. Find some other predictions here if we can. Any? I don't think we have. Rise says Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Verstappen, Vettel, Albon, Sainz, Hulkenberg, Norris, Ricardo, but says that he hopes for a Valtteri Bottas pole position. Well, again, it can happen. Very quick in practice compared to Hamilton, and also historically in qualifying, Valtteri is very quick here. Pole position F1 says Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Verstappen, Vettel, Albon. Another one there. Can't pronounce the name though. Too hard for me to pronounce. But they've said Max Leclerc, Ham. Others can. Canadian Joel says Hamilton, Vettel, Bottas, Leclerc, Verstappen, Albon, Ricardo. Michael, hold on. Michael Dennis Bello, I think it is, says Leclerc, Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen, Vettel. See if there's any others. Renault is so unpredictable, someone's saying there. And I can't at the moment. Doris Paradise saying, well done, Chaz. Good man. Thanks for your dedication. It's appreciated. Thank you for appreciating the dedication. And again, no matter what time Formula 1 is on, I'm going to be there because I just completely, love Formula 1. As qualifying is underway in 7.5 minutes. And I can't wait for it not because of anything that's happened so far this weekend, but because the track is green. So, we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know what cars are going to excel on a completely green track. So, that's what's making me very, very excited for qualifying. And it should make also for a very good race as well. Because normally, if you look at race weekends where we've had very little dry running, or the track's been completely washed with rain and then it's dried up again, normally those races tend to be very, very good because the grip is unknown to the drivers and not, absolutely certain or rubbered in. So I think we are in for a good session and a good day of racing as well at one of the best tracks in the world. And by the way, someone asking there, I think Powell Novak asking what green means. When I say green track, just for F1 terminology, what a green track means is, again, when, say the track's dry on a Friday of a Grand Prix weekend, if it then rains overnight, but then it's dry the next day, then the track is green, meaning the rubber that was laid down beforehand has been washed away, meaning the track has no, rubber on it, and the grip that they put down to make the track more grippier has gone away. So that's why in practice 1, at every Grand Prix weekend, the track is green, because there's no rubber down as of yet for the drivers to really, push the cars as hard as possible straight away. There you go. One final picture before we get into qualifying of, I guess, the home favourite, you'd have to say, Max Verstappen, because if Honda are going to win or be on the podium, it's going to be this man, isn't it? Considering how great he is at this track, as Lewis Hamilton is coming into his garage, I see. Lewis said he went back to Tokyo, or he was going to go back to Tokyo. I'm not sure if he actually did, because the weather was shocking in Tokyo yesterday, but yeah, hopefully he's all okay and ready for qualifying. Let me find a couple final comments or predictions, and we'll get to qualifying. Japan. David Peck, greetings. I'm new, subscribed and liked. Thank you very much. And again, if you are new, we do watch-alongs for every practice to qualifying and race for every race weekend. And I will, again, no matter what the time is. So don't forget to subscribe for that. For those practice to qualifying and race watch-alongs coming up later today, right now. And for the Mexican, US, Brazilian and Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, of course, for the rest of 2019. And I'm sure we'll be doing the same for 2020 as well, as the F1 intro is now playing. But before we get into qualifying, for any people that are new, like David, I just need to let you guys know what we do for watch-alongs, so we're clear as to what we do. So, one, we do not show live footage because that would be breaking copyright law on this website and in general, and I'm not going to do that, of course. So what I'll show is a slideshow of pictures of cars from, I think from Friday, but you know, you'll have plenty to look at on the screen. There should be one picture every 3 minutes, I believe, is what I've set it to. So yeah, there'll be plenty of pictures for you guys to look at on the screen. I'll have a running order running along the bottom of the screen to show you guys what the live order is. I will try to update it as much as I can. I can't promise you I'll update it all the time, but I will update it probably 2 times every qualifying session. Of course, Q1, Q2 and Q3. So I should update it fully 6 times during qualifying. And what I will do is provide a radio-style commentary of what is going on. So if you can watch, then of course you can watch what's on screen and listen to me. But if you can only listen because you're out and about, if it's, you know, daytime or, you know, early evening, wherever you are, then don't worry. I'll keep you guys up to date as to what is going on at the track. And yeah, we are only, 2.5 minutes away from qualifying getting underway at Suzuka. And yeah, the weather conditions, by the way, guys, it is perfectly clear, not a cloud in sight. But again, there is wind that will play havoc with some laps out there in qualifying. But let's see. You guys have to say, Joe Hart, thanks, Chaz, you rock. Thank you very much. Jeff saying thanks, watching from Seattle. Hello to you. Michael Welch, watching from Florida. Great to see a lot of you guys from North America here. Of course, this timing is very good for you guys. So yeah, great to have you all here at a good time for once for you guys and gals in North America. And also the next 2 races and even Brazil are good for you guys in terms of time. So yeah, great time from now on, I guess, to be an American, North American Formula One fan, as the flags are really blowing in the wind. And it is definitely a windy day. I think the wind is probably going to calm down as the day goes on, you know, as the typhoon moves away from Suzuka. So the wind is not going to get worse, but it's still a factor, and it's still going to really hurt the drivers at times when they're on a lap and, you know, swinging the car into Degner and turn 1. And maybe they might even have a little surprise when they come into 130R. We'll have to see. Once qualifying gets underway, and it does get underway in about 1 minute's time. And yet the track looking in good condition, fully dry. No real damage around the circuit. Great to see. Also great to see that no one in the surrounding area, I believe, from what I've seen, was hurt by the typhoon that came through on Saturday evening. And let me just read one final comment if I can. Fully get into qualifying here. And NN saying, and it is kind of true, the problem will be the inconsistency of the gusts of wind. It will. Because it's, you know, coming and going, but also it's changing all the time as the typhoon moves away. But anyway, let's get rid of that timer and let's get it all set up. So if you are new to qualifying, Q1, qualifying 1 is 18 minutes long, and then qualifying 2 is 15 minutes long, and then qualifying 3 is 12 minutes long. I wouldn't be surprised if we had some red flags today, because it's going to be difficult out there, and I think drivers will crash. There you go. The text up there is ready. Just waiting for the timer on the screen to start qualifying. And by the way, great commitment by the fans at Suzuka. The crowd is already all there. The grandstands are packed at just 10 a.m. local time. It is really good to see that commitment. But as we've seen over the years, the Japanese F1 fans are so committed, and plenty of drivers now coming to the exit the pit lane to get this session underway. And there you go. So qualifying is officially underway. That timer is about a second slow on the real timer, but it's basically all set. And the Ferraris have come out on hard compound tyres. That is quite a surprise. But anyway, let's get that up. By the way, this is not the live running order. This is the running order from practice 2. And we'll get the slideshow up. There you go. So that'll play one picture every 3 minutes. If there's any issues with it, I'll try and fix it. But yeah, it should be all good. But yeah, qualifying is underway. And we have Leclerc, Vettel, Sainz, Norris, Hülkenberg, Kubica and Russell on the track already. As of course, they want to get those laps in before any crashes happen or anything like that. I will say again, though, it is quite a surprise that the Ferraris are out on hard tyres. And let's remember, the compounds brought to this race this weekend are the hardest in Formula 1. The hard compound is the C1, which if we had that for last year, that'd be the blue hard tyre. That's how hard a compound they brought to this weekend. So that's quite a surprise. They've gone out on the absolute hardest compound for the first run. As we've now got Gasly, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Kvyat, the 2 Renaults, the 2 Williamses, Perez coming out on the track. And the only people not on the track, the 2 Mercedes cars, 2 Red Bulls, 2 Haas's, and Lance Stroll. Bit surprising Stroll's not on track, considering, of course, that his teammate is. Who is this? I think Nico. Yes, it is. Nico Hülkenberg coming through 130R on soft compound tyres to start his first run of qualifying. Let's see what Nico can do. Nico is good at this circuit. Bit of smoke coming out the rear, I think. Yellow flag in sector 1 and 3. Don't know what for. Oh, red flag. A Williams has crashed at the final corner. And that is Robert Kubica. So let me get rid of that timer. Red flag. Oh, that's a bad crash. I think Kubica's out of the race as well. He's not going to repair that. He's done what Bottas has done. He's come through the final corner where you really have to be careful when you accelerate. And he's dropped it and put it right in the wall on the pit straight. That is not good. That is not good for Robert Kubica. And yeah, I think he's out of the race. Because that car is going to be badly damaged. And also, it's kind of up on 3 wheels. So I think the chassis might be damaged a bit as well. That's going to take time to fix. That's really giving Williams a hard job to fix that car. So we have 15 minutes and 51 seconds to go in session. And yep, Kubica came through the final corner. Oh, big crash. Suspension completely ripped apart. And yeah, I think Kubica struggles to make the race with that. What he did was he came through the final corner. As you turn onto the pit straight, he got a wheel on the grass, went off, hit the barriers, and then went into the wall. And yet the suspension completely ripped off that car. That is the worst way to start, I think, this type of day. That is not how you need to start your day. And yet the Williams either wouldn't turn as much as he wanted it to, had a bit too much understeer, or Robert just made a mistake and was a bit too, say, not cautious, but just not really at it going through that final bit. So considering Kubica is going to be out, might as well put Kubica in 20th place. And, well, he was probably going to be at the back anyway, but still. That's not good. for the Polish driver, and this is probably going to be his last Japanese Grand Prix as well. So, yeah, that is probably the worst way to end it all. So, Robert Kubica now in P20. So, I know it says remaining in Q1, but we do have a red flag. So, once the session gets underway, I'll let you guys know. Currently under red flag, we've got 15 minutes and 51 seconds to go. And it's going to take, I'd say, another 3 or 4 minutes to get the session underway, as they're now clearing up the track, repairing the barriers. And I have to say, this is not what you need also. If you're trying to get the race on as soon as possible after qualifying, because this will delay the end of qualifying by a few minutes. Bruce Segal, pieces of cars everywhere. Simon Cragland saying, don't think he'll drive later. No, I don't think that Williams will be ready. The only good thing is that he crashed right next to the pit lane. So at least they can get the car back before qualifying finishes. And they can have a bit of time to get it ready. A bit more time to get it ready than probably other teams could. But, yeah, that is... still, that's going to be tough for Williams. A tough ask for Williams to repair that car and get it all ready and make sure it's all, you know, fully safe and ready to take the grid in 4 hours' time. And, again, replaying Kubica... I don't know if that's just he wasn't turning in as much as he should, or he was, or if the Williams car just had a bit too much understeer coming through that final corner. I think a bit of both. I think the Williams had a bit of understeer coming through that final corner. And also, Kubica was very passive in terms of starting that lap. Very passive. And the Williams mechanics look very, very... not angry, but annoyed, I guess, or disappointed, because they know now they've got a real job on their hands. And there is about 1 million marshals now on the pit straight, brushing the track and brushing the aerodynamic pieces off the track that fell onto the track after Kubica hit the wall. And, well, as I talked about earlier, that's why Williams... are not using the new front wing, because if that happens, then it just completely ruins it all. And also, they didn't have any more than one new front wing anyway. But as Simon Cragland just said in the chat, they don't have a lot of spare parts anyway. Exactly, that's why Robert Kubica retired from the Russian Grand Prix. Not because he had a problem, his car was fine, but because Russell had a, I think, brake failure or a tyre failure, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. Because they had a lack of spare parts, they decided, instead of risking a crash with Kubica, to retire his car. But yeah, after that, they're going to have even less parts now to work with going into the race. And the session, I think, should be underway in a few minutes' time. But whilst we wait, let's read what you guys have to say in the chat for a few minutes. Tonka saying the wind may have caught him out. True, the wind, it could have blown him a bit more to the left than he would have wanted to. That is true. Should have thought that. Crystal Racing, utterly bizarre for Kubica to be pushing, considering he'll be P20 anyway. I have thought this with Williams, is I'm surprised they don't just take grid penalties and new power unit parts at every race, because they're going to be at the back anyway. They might as well just experiment, or Mercedes-Benz might as well experiment and use Williams as a test bed for their new power units, because Williams are going to be at the back anyway, so I don't know why Williams just don't take on new parts and new power unit parts all the time, because why not? I mean, yeah, you're not going to have an absolute ton of power unit parts or, you know, new turbos or MGUKs hanging around, but might as well try and help anything, you know, that could happen for the race. But Robert Kubica now back in the pits, talking to his engineers about why he crashed. To be fair, though, the wind around where he crashed, it doesn't look that bad to push him fully, you know, away from the line. I think, again, if it did play a factor, it was not just the wind. It was probably also him not quite committing quite early enough, I guess, to the inside of that final corner. And the session will be underway in a minute's time. 10 past 10 local time. So, yeah, 1 minute's time. And once we get down to the 15-minute mark, I'll make sure to sync up the timer. As the two Alphas are at the exit of the pit lane. By the way, this picture is in on the screen. The reason I included it is because it was such a great picture. I decided, why not include it in there for you guys to have a look at. As two Alphas waiting for the session to get underway. And it should get underway right now, and it does. So Giovinazzi and Raikkonen lead back away. Also, Toro Rosso's coming out, racing points. And yeah, in about 35 seconds' time, I'll sync up the timer. And Crystal Racing saying, to Kubica's credit, he crashed in the best place possible because his car has already been returned to the Williams garage. Yeah, absolutely. If he was going to crash, that's the best place to crash. As we've got Perez, Gasly, Raikkonen, Kvyat, Stroll, Giovinazzi, Magnussen and Russell on track right now on an outlap. And I'm about to sync up the timer. 3, 2, 1. There you go. 15 minutes to go in qualifying 1. Who will have the force to get pole position today in the windy conditions, we'll have to see. As, again, the two Mercedes cars waiting in the pits. Obviously, they know something about the track conditions, maybe a bit more than other teams do. But I think most of the teams that are out on track right now, I think they're just trying to get a lap in early so they don't risk getting knocked out later on. As we're currently looking at a Toro Rosso going through Spoon and now warming up their tyres, heading to 130R. And yeah, luckily for Williams, they've got the car, trying to push the car back into the pits, but it's so windy, they're struggling. But they've got it back into the pits, so they now have, Williams, 4 hours to get that car ready. As Kimi Raikkonen, the winner of the classic 2005 Japanese Grand Prix, starts his first run in qualifying in the Alfa Romeo as he comes through the S's. Let's see what Raikkonen can do. Looking good so far. And he comes through Dunlop and not really running too wide on the exit, not taking that many risks early on. 31.9 for the first sector. That is not a good first sector time, I have to say. Giovinazzi has gone faster than that, but only by a tenth of a second. But that's a very slow first sector. As Raikkonen exits the hairpin and now starts to run down to Spoon. Very fast part of the track. Very, very hard to get right. And Raikkonen just throws it in. And instability in the second part. Bit of oversteer going into the second part. He had to correct the car. And that will definitely affect his first run here in qualifying. Pierre Gasly has done a faster first sector than both Alphas. As Raikkonen flashes through 130R. There's a Hulkenberg. There's a Renault. So on the inside of the final chicane, but Raikkonen passes him easily. Now Raikkonen rounds the final chicane. And Kimi Raikkonen does a 1:31.3. That is a very slow lap time. Antonio Giovinazzi goes a lot faster on a 1:30.5. That's a bit more like it for an Alpha. The first run of qualifying. Pierre Gasly, he now goes P1 by a second on a 29.6. Kvyat goes second, only a tenth off Gasly. Toro Rosso banging in a couple good laps early on. That's exactly what you need to do. Because again, if there's red flags later on, that's really going to hamper your session. As Perez does a slow lap. Stroll does an okay first run. Yeah, Perez 0.6 slower than Stroll after the first run. Sector 1 and 3 does a yellow flag. Someone else is in the barriers. Who is it? It's a Haas. It's a Haas. Another red flag. And it's Kevin Magnussen at the final chicane, exit the final chicane. Kevin Magnussen has binned it. He might, though, be able to continue in qualifying. Oh, no, he can't, can he? Because if a red flag comes out, I don't think you're allowed to continue. I think his car is broke. He's staying in the car in case he can drive it on, but I think his car is damaged. But red flag, and yep, Magnussen reversing. Got no front wing. And I think he has a broken suspension. But the problem is he's missed the entry to the pit lane. So how is he going to continue round with no front wing or maybe even no working suspension? Unless he parks at the end of the pit lane. But he's got going again. But now he's dropping debris all over the track and his rear wing is hanging off. Yeah, Magnussen's done. Kevin Magnussen is out of this session, surely. He's driving around, but his rear wing's hanging off. Front wing is quite badly damaged. And he might have a broken front suspension. Here we go. So exit for the final chicane, wrestling the car. And I think that is the wind. So he's gone through the final corner. Oh, he hit the DRS marker board there. So what he's done, exited the final chicane. Car is all over the place. Wind speed of 20 kilometers an hour, by the way. And the car's just completely spun around. And then he's reversed. That was stupid. He just reversed to get, I assume, to get going again. He just reversed straight into the wall. That's a bit stupid by Kevin, but that can't be the wind as to why he blew straight into the wall. But yeah, spun around, I think, because of the wind and the lack of grip. And then I think reversed in a panic to get going again, but then just reversed straight into the barriers. And I think that's him out of qualifying now. Even though he's driving around the track with a hanging off rear wing and a hanging off front wing. Wow, this has been an eventful qualifying so far. And yes, Gasly P1, the end is near. I did not think I'd see that this season. Yeah, Magnussen, I don't know where he is on the track. Here he is. He's exiting Spoon, driving slowly. His rear wing is hanging on by a thread. But, by the way, just to let people know who are just joining us, we are currently, again, for the second time in about 5 or 6 minutes, we are under a red flag. First, it was Robert Kubica completely binning his car in the wall on the entry to the pit straight, and Magnussen basically did the same. He has got going again, but his front wing and rear wing is quite badly damaged. And now Kevin comes back into the pit lane. And I don't know when we're going to get going again, but and now he comes in, yeah, half of his front wing is non-existent, and his rear wing, yeah, his rear wing needs replacing. And maybe the gearbox as well, because he went into that wall very hard on the rear end. So I think that's a new gearbox, new front wing, new rear wing, and maybe a new front suspension, Kevin. Well, we said, didn't we? For the Haas drivers, they are accident prone. And they are likely to bin it. And, well, one of them has. And I might as well put Magnussen in 19th place. For now, because I don't think Kevin is going to get out in the next 11.5 minutes. So for now, I'll put Magnussen in 19th place. Then place Magnussen there with Russell. But we've only had a few times on the board. But just to let people know, we haven't had proper running as of yet. For some reason, running order really over the place. Okay. But yeah, we're under a red flag again. Very windy still. And we have 11 minutes and 42 seconds to go. In only the first part of qualifying. And by now, if there was no red flag, Q1 would be over. So we're in for a long day, guys. Very long day. Who knows? Maybe the race will get delayed if it takes a long while. And I have to say, this is very similar, this session so far, to 2009. If anyone watched the 2009 Japanese Grand Prix qualifying, that session had about 9 red flags. And yeah, I think Magnussen's spin was wind affected, but quite why he reversed straight into the wall is a bit weird. Bit weird why he decided to just reverse into the wall at a high altitude. Just hide this person. Go. And the session will get underway in about 1 minute's time. Crystal Racing, could the wind cancel the race? I don't think it will. I think the drivers will just have to be more careful. I mean, clearly it was good enough for Gasly, Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Perez, Raikkonen, Russell, and Hülkenberg. So I think it's more down to the drivers as who we got at the end of the pit lane there? A Renault and I think both Mercedes cars at the end of the pit lane, and a Ferrari and a McLaren, 2 McLarens, another Ferrari, a Toro Rosso. So we're going to get a rush out of the pit lane now. And I think the reason the rush is because if the red flags continue, then they've got to get a lap in before it all kicks off. And session should be underway in a few seconds' time. As Sebastian Vettel is kind of half out of his garage and half not in the pit lane. Hopefully no one stalls their car because that'll make it very chaotic. And yet the session is now back underway. As the cars now come back out and the wind speed actually is increased. It's now 23 kilometers per hour. That's 3 miles an hour more than it was a few minutes ago. So the wind is really picking up. Yet the cars are now on track. In 20 seconds time I'll sync the timer up once again. But who we got there? We now got people racing around the track trying to get ahead in the pecking order on the track to get laps in so they don't get held up as Max Verstappen goes around the outside of a McLaren in the S's, and he'll now try to do the same to a Renault. Oh, Charles Leclerc. Oh, I've missed a syncing up point. I'll do it in a moment once we get down to the 10-minute mark. Charles Leclerc, though, almost collided with a McLaren going into Dunlop, which is the final part of the S's. And now he's sat right behind him, and I don't think this McLaren is going to be letting him through anytime soon. And Vettel is stuck behind the other McLaren as well, with 10.5 minutes to go in Q1. This is a very weird qualifying session. I think we can absolutely say that. And Leclerc trying to blast past McLaren on the way to Spoon, but the McLaren is not letting him through, and neither is the other McLaren on Sebastian Vettel. Interesting stuff. And Verstappen, is it Verstappen? I think it is right behind one of the Renaults of Nico Hülkenberg. And I'll sync up the timer right now. There you go. 10 minutes to go in qualifying 1. And now everyone is massively backing up in the final chicane. So hopefully no one comes around 130R at speed. Toro Rosso almost collided with Sebastian Vettel then, as Bottas and Hamilton start their first run as one of the McLarens has their brakes on fire going into the final chicane, and Valtteri Bottas starts his first lap of qualifying. Let's see what the Flying Finn can do as he throws it into the S's, now into Dunlop. That Mercedes looking good. And at the end of the first sector, he's only half a tenth up on Gasly. Not too great of a first sector for Valtteri. Only half a tenth up on a Toro Rosso. As Bottas now comes into the hairpin. This lap, though, so far looks good. Car looks good. Also, Hamilton, not too quick in the first sector. Max Verstappen, though, a lot quicker in the first sector. As Bottas throws it into Spoon. Oh, understeer. Car did not look good there. And now he exits the Spoon and now takes the run to 130R, where you do need a lot of top-end speed And Valtteri only 3 tenths up on Gasly so far on this lap. Not a great first run by Bottas. Now comes into the final chicane. There is really not a lot of grip out there. You can really see from Valtteri's on board. Not a lot of grip. As Valtteri opens the DRS, comes across the line and goes P1 by 2 tenths of a second. Max Verstappen, though, is flying along. Lewis Hamilton goes second, about half a tenth, or 3/4 of a tenth rather, off Bottas. And Max Verstappen now comes to the line and goes P1 by 6.5 tenths of a second. Great first run by Max Verstappen. Here comes Charles Leclerc. Opens a DRS. Where does he go? He goes P1 by 3.5 tenths. Very good first run for Leclerc. And McLaren up there. Norris goes 6th. And Sebastian Vettel goes 3rd. Just waiting for Albon and Grosjean to set their first times in qualifying 1. And then I'll update the order to what it is. And we're not seeing... now Albon goes P5. Carlos Sainz goes P4. Very good first run for Carlos Sainz. And I don't know where Grosjean is at the moment. Russell has just gone 15th, ahead of Perez and Raikkonen. That's impressive. And Russell only half a second off the Renaults. But I don't know where Grosjean is in the Haas, but he should be completing a lap soon. Oh no, he's still in the pits. Don't know why. But I think I'll update the order now. So it is Charles Leclerc in P1 as most cars are now touring back to the pits. Charles Leclerc is P1. Max Verstappen is in 2nd place as Grosjean comes out. Sebastian Vettel is 3rd. In 4th place is, who is it? It's Carlos Sainz. Yeah, Mercedes not really that good for the first run of qualifying, I have to say. And then it is Alex Albon. Do it. Alex Albon is in P5. And then in 6th place is Valtteri Bottas. And then 7th is Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, not great first run. But again, only the first run of Q1. But if there is a red flag later on, you never know. Might be a surprise elimination. Norris has gone 8th. 9th is Gasly. And then 10th is Kvyat. So that's the top 10. 2 Toro Rossos in the top 10. Who expected that? And then Nico Hülkenberg is in P11. As I'm seeing a replay of Bottas through, I think, the final chicane on the exit. And yeah, really losing the rear end. And I think there is a bit of a strong wind coming across, affecting the drivers there. And then it's Ricciardo in 12th position, as we're seeing here. Who is this? Oh, it's Valtteri Bottas on another lap, is it? And Valtteri Bottas goes up to P3. Right, so I'll update that in a moment. Just want to... And Grosjean, I think, has just started a lap. So, Giovinazzi is 13th. 14th is Stroll. And then it's Russell in 15th. As Lewis Hamilton comes up to the line and he goes 2nd. Again, I'll update that in just a moment. And then it is Perez in 16th place. 17th is Kimi Raikkonen. And we saw his lap on the TV and it was not a good lap. Not a good first run. Perez, though, currently on another run. He is 16th, and then Grosjean at the moment is in 18th. Let me just update. Lewis Hamilton has jumped up to 2nd, putting Max Verstappen down into 3rd place. And then Bottas 4th as Perez coming to the end of his lap Bottas in 4th, and then Vettel, Albon, Sainz, Albon. And Perez comes to the line and goes P11 with 3.5 minutes to go in qualifying. And Grosjean comes to the line and goes P8. Very good first run there for Roman. Yeah, Vettel down to P5. And then it is Carlos Sainz in 6th. Then Albon dropped down to 7th. And then, yeah, Grosjean has just gone up to 8th place in the Haas, as all the drivers are coming out on outlaps now. So I've got to make sure I get this done before they get their laps going. Final run of qualifying 1. So the top 10 is Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Vettel, Sainz, Albon, Grosjean, Norris, Gasly. And then it is P11 for Daniel Kvyat. P12 is Sergio Perez. And then 13th and 14th is Hülkenberg and Ricciardo at the moment. As who is this? Stroll rounding the final chicane to start his final lap of qualifying 1. Hopefully he can get through. He's currently in 16th place, so not looking great at the moment. And then, yeah, Ricciardo as 2 minutes to go in qualifying. Ricciardo 14th, and then it is Giovinazzi. Then Stroll, Raikkonen, Russell as Stroll coming through the S's. Car looks fine at the moment, and he's really pushing it now. So let's see what he can do. Throws it into Degnan 1, half a second up he is on Antonio Giovinazzi. Very, very strong first sector for Stroll. And that's exactly what he needs. And the track evolution, as I was thinking, very, very good. And that might put a top runner in trouble as Stroll comes into Spoon, throws it in, and car looking fine. He's not pushing massively hard compared to other drivers, but he's doing enough as he now comes up to the middle sector point. And he is, at the moment, this lap will put him in the top 10. If he keeps this up, comes into the final chicane, turns it in, and nicely does it. Can he get through the final corner without spinning? He does. And Lance Stroll comes to the line and goes P10. As I thought, he got into the top 10. Will he stay there, though? As Kimi Raikkonen goes P12. That's not too great for Kimi. Daniel Ricciardo, currently 16th. Goes 14th. That's not good for Ricciardo. As Giovinazzi goes P11. That's good for him. Hülkenberg, currently 17th. Goes 13th. Daniel Ricciardo is out of qualifying 1. Daniel Ricciardo is out. That is a big shame, as Lando Norris is currently P9. And Lando goes P4 in the McLaren. Gasly goes up to 9th. Russell stays in 18th, but only half a second from getting into qualifying 2. Not a bad effort. Daniel Kvyat stays in 15th, and Perez is also out. So there you go. That is qualifying 1 over. And the order is, let me just do it. There you go. Q1 is officially over and knocked out Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, George Russell, Kevin Magnussen, and Robert Kubica. Big shame for Magnussen, Perez, and Ricciardo, especially Perez and Ricciardo, 2 guys who I thought were going to be very good today, and they've had a horrible qualifying, and they've set themselves up for disaster starting that far back. So the order of Q1, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, Bottas, Vettel, and then Sainz and Albon, P7, and P8. So McLaren, you have to say, look really strong out the box, Q1. But again, their fight will come later on in qualifying. Gasly also looking good, P9. Daniel Kvyat, kind of lucky that he got through because he didn't really improve at all on his final run in the first part of qualifying. Grosjean P10. Lance Stroll is P11. So Stroll through to Q2 and out-qualifies Sergio Perez. I think that's the first time he's done it this season. So great for Stroll. And that is a big surprise. Giovinazzi P12. And then Hülkenberg 13th. Raikkonen 14th. In the second Alpha. By the way, if Giovinazzi can out-qualify Raikkonen here, you have to say that's a superb drive, because this weekend is Antonio's first ever weekend at Suzuka. Raikkonen has been racing here since 2001. So that would be very impressive if he could keep that up. And then out to qualifying one, it's Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, Russell, Magnussen, and Kubica. Yeah, big shame there for Daniel Ricciardo. That's not what Renault needed, especially considering they are still fighting teams like Toro Rosso and Racing Point in the Constructors. So, yeah, not looking great. And you have to say, for Renault, not looking great because Hülkenberg wasn't that much better in the other Renault. So, yeah, not good for the Renault team. And qualifying 2 will start in 4 minutes time. That's what Race Control come out and said. By the way, great to have just over 900 people watching at what is, for us Europeans, the middle of the night. So great to have everyone here. I'm sure most of you are from parts of the world where it is a sociable time of day, but great to have you all here. And if we can, guys, let's try and get over 1,000 viewers live. That would be great to have, you know, at this time in the morning. Let's try and get that if we can. I think we will get it, but let's try anyway. And yet we have, what, 3.5 minutes to go until qualifying. Until qualifying 2 gets underway. Let's see what you guys are saying. RBC Gamer, let's go UK. Indeed, indeed. Some other comments here if I can. What's going on? Well, you can see on the screen if you are unable to watch the session. Don't worry, the running order is there, and that is the final finishing order. That's the final finishing order of qualifying 1, and yeah, Q2 will be underway very soon. Tonka saying go McLaren. Shadow fan saying could be the start of something big for Giovinazzi and Stroll. I will say, and I was very critical of Antonio before he came to Formula 1 and in the first few races. But you have to say, since the Canadian Grand Prix, Antonio has been really good. He really has. And I think he does deserve some credit. I know people have been saying, Hülkenberg should get the Alfa Romeo seat. But to be honest, if you look at where Antonio is going in Formula 1 compared to Nico, I don't see why Alfa should go for a different driver lineup, because Alfa is the Ferrari B team, and they're going to try Ferrari Academy drivers in the Alfa Romeo, but also Antonio's doing really well at the moment, and who's to say that Antonio can't go on to be a Nico Hülkenberg level of driver? Because as far as I'm concerned, out-qualifying Kimi Raikkonen the amount of times he has is a very impressive thing, and I'm not sure Nico would, do quite the same, or, much better than what Antonio has done this season. So I think Antonio does deserve some credit, and also Stroll, because he is improving. There is no doubt about it. As much as I criticise that guy, and I have criticised him a lot, he is improving in Formula 1, and it's looking a lot better of a driver than he was a couple years ago. But let me now get this text ready for you guys, as qualifying 2 is about to get underway. And yep, still very windy track. And looks as though it's getting even windier. Not good news, especially for the drivers. As we're currently on the TV looking at Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso, who had a good first part of qualifying. We just adjust that picture. You guys can see the Alpha. There you go. Yeah, Gasly, good first part of qualifying. And looking pretty good, I think. Oh, hold on. Just that. Just slideshow. There you go. And the session will be underway very shortly, as we're now looking at Lando Norris, who finished P4 in qualifying 1, and he is number 4, of course, in Formula 1. And the session has now started. They didn't show the time, but that's why I haven't been able to sync up at the right moment, but I will in about half a minute's time, as Ricciardo comes into scrutineering and... scrutineering, sorry. Yeah, looking very unhappy. Very similar feelings for him to 12 months ago, where he had a disaster, but then had a great race. So hopefully for him, he can go on and have the exact same. And the timer is synced up right now. So 14 minutes to go in qualifying 2. And who is going to get knocked out? Well, it's going to be close between Gasly, Grosjean, Giovinazzi, Hülkenberg, Raikkonen, Kvyat. And I have to say at the moment, based on what we saw in qualifying 1, the McLarens look quite comfortable at the front of the midfield pack. I don't know if that will continue in qualifying 2 and qualifying 3, but they do look quite comfortable. As Charles Leclerc is coming out on soft tyres. Everyone, I think, will come out on soft tyres because we have the hardest compounds for this weekend's race, and tyre wear will not be as big of an issue as it has been at other races because of how hard the compounds are. As we get Leclerc, Vettel, Giovinazzi, Hülkenberg, Raikkonen, Gasly on track. Gasly very slow coming out on track, and also a McLaren. And Valtteri Bottas about to come out on track as well. We just wait for him to come out. And other Toro Rosso of Daniil Kvyat is now also on the track. And here come the two Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Let's see if they have anything to respond to Ferrari with in this second part of qualifying. But let's remember that this part of qualifying is not that important for the top teams, because at the end of the day, Q2 is about getting through to the third part of qualifying. So as long as they do that, nothing else really matters. But still, they want to send a message as to how quick they are going into the third part of qualifying, the shootout, in a few moments' time. But we've still got another 12 minutes or so of Q2, and Charles Leclerc starts what is probably going to be his only run of Q2 and is now coming down the pit straight. What can Charles Leclerc do? Throws it into turn 1. Ferrari in the fast corners looking good, as I thought. And now throws it into the S's. And again, the Ferrari looking good. I'm not sure the Ferrari looks as good as the Mercedes in some of these corners, but the Ferrari is good enough with the engine power they have most likely the fastest car. As Leclerc does a 30.8 for the first sector. That's not great, I have to say. Not the greatest first sector for him. And yep, Sebastian Vettel goes faster. So yeah, not a great first sector for Charles Leclerc, considering he was much faster than Sebastian in qualifying 1. Leclerc now throws it into to Spoon. And the car responds well. Goes slightly wide on the exit of the Spoon section, but he's fine. And for the middle sector, he does a 1:10.6. Again, that's not quite good. That's not that good for the middle sector on this first run, as Leclerc now comes through the final chicane and comes to the line. And Charles Leclerc does a 1:28.1. Yeah, that's not the greatest lap, but that should get him through to the next part of qualifying. Here comes Sebastian Vettel. And what will Sebastian do? Sebastian goes P1 by 5 thousandths of a second. That's how close it is at Ferrari. As Valtteri Bottas is on his first run of Q2, as Kimi Raikkonen goes P3. Hamilton has done a purple first sector, as Giovinazzi and Hülkenberg go slower than Raikkonen. And Valtteri now coming up to the middle sector. Let's see what Valtteri has done compared to Ferrari. And he's about 1/10 of a second down on Ferrari, so not too bad after the first two sectors. Lewis Hamilton, though, very quick on this lap so far. And Valtteri now comes to the line, and he does a 1:28.3. That's not too bad. Lewis Hamilton, though, does a 27.8 and goes P1 by 3.5 tenths of a second. Here comes Max Verstappen. This is not a great lap, I think, for Max. No, P5, about 7 tenths of a second off Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, not great of a run there for Max. Sainz has gone up to 6th. Grosjean goes 9th. Raikkonen is P7. That's a lot more like it for Kimi Raikkonen. And Albon goes up to P6. So let me do the running order again. So Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, is P1. From Sebastian Vettel in P2. Again, Vettel only ahead by 5 thousandths of a second. Very close at the front. Then it is Charles Leclerc in 3rd. 4th is Valtteri Bottas. So yeah, Mercedes and Ferrari at the front 2 rows. That's as expected, I guess, coming into the weekend. But I thought Max Verstappen would be a bit quicker. So Verstappen in P5. And then Albon is 6th. But Albon is a bit too far behind Verstappen, you'd have to say. If we can get a couple tenths closer, that'd be good. But yeah, Albon is 6th, and then it is Sainz in P7. Raikkonen in 8th. That's quite surprising that Raikkonen has just gone straight into 8th place. And then it's Norris in 9th, and Romain Grosjean is in 10th place. And then in the drop zone, in the drop zone at the moment is Pierre Gasly, Daniel Kvyat. Take that if I can. There you go. Yeah, Daniel Kvyat in P12. And then Antonio Giovinazzi 13th. And then it's Stroll 14th. And Hülkenberg 15th. Where has Renault's pace gone? They had it on Friday, but so far there is no pace to be had. And I thought coming into this weekend, like most people, Renault would actually be a bit stronger here. But they're not. They really do not have a good fundamental pace in that car. So there you go. In the drop zone again, Gasly, Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Stroll and Hülkenberg with 6 minutes to go in qualifying 2. Let me just that up a bit so you can see Toro Rosso kind of there. And yeah, there you go, 1,000 watching live. Thank you guys very, very much. Again, to be having 1,000 viewers at this time in the morning, I cannot thank you guys enough. I can't believe that you guys are as committed as me, you know, tuning into the stream and watching Formula One. So thank you guys so much. And yeah, hopefully all of you will join me for the race watch along, which will be getting underway in about, what, 2.5 hours time after qualifying finishes. And by the way, just to let you guys know, as soon as qualifying finishes, so I can get the race watch along ready, I will have to come off as soon as qualifying finishes. So just to let you guys know, as soon as qualifying finishes and I do the order on the screen, I will be ending the stream because I have to have time to get the race watch along ready on time. And remember, we're starting at 5:10 a.m. UK time for the race watch along, with an hour's build up, then the race for an hour and a half, and then a, I don't know, half an hour reaction. And Nib, hopefully, will be on that stream, as long as he doesn't oversleep. Sure, he'll appreciate me saying that. As we now have 4.5 minutes to go. Qualifying 2. Master Estevo, great to see you, mate. Says, what the... yeah, Renault, what the F? You were improving. How come you've gone backwards? Bristol Racing. Chaz's Barmy Army. Thanks for that. That's a good one. Yeah, Renault this weekend have actually brought a new front wing. I don't know if they're using it because they said they're going to test it. So, of course, they tested it in practice. I don't know if it's on the car, though. I'll try and find out after the race if it's been put on the car or not. But anyway, here they all come. The pack of Stroll, Hülkenberg, the McLarens, Grosjean, the Toro Rossos, the Alphas. And, well, next season, the Toro Rossos will be called Alphas. And that is it so far. And at the moment, the top 6 are staying in the pits. I think Albon should probably come out just in case to cover off any midfield runner going very quick. And yeah, Albon is coming out. And so is another top runner. I think the rest of the top runners are coming out. Just that picture. There you go. Of Hülkenberg, who again is P15. If he qualifies there with Ricciardo in 16th, you have to say Renault are in big trouble for the race, because I don't see them scoring points if they qualify there. Because they don't have, you know, obviously quite enough, a quick enough car to come through from that position to finish in the points, unless we get a chaotic Grand Prix. As the only cars in the pits right now are the 2 Ferraris of Vettel and Leclerc, as Hülkenberg is busy letting cars through. Grosjean has just passed Nico Hülkenberg, as we're now about to go down to the 2-minute mark remaining in qualifying 2. And on the TV there is Mark Slade, I believe, the guy who used to be the engineer for Kimi Raikkonen when he was at McLaren and Lotus. And here comes Lance Stroll to start his final run. Can Stroll get into Q3? Let's see. As now Stroll comes through the first part of the track. Now into the S's. And not looking great, but not looking bad for Lance Stroll so far. Hülkenberg has pitted, so here's a problem. So Hülkenberg is out. Oh, Renault. That just sums up their season, you know. Complete disaster. As Stroll is slightly slower than Grosjean after the first sector. Yeah, Hülkenberg is out of qualifying. He has some kind of problem with his car. I don't know what, but he was talking about, about on the team radio. My throat feels very sore. As Stroll come through Spoon. And like he was at the end of qualifying 1, not looking spectacular, but he's doing the job. He's not crashing or getting oversteer or understeer. And he is half a tenth down on Grosjean after the first 2 sectors. Grosjean, of course, is P10. He's got to improve on what Grosjean has done. Stroll now comes out of the final chicane. And Lance Stroll goes P8. Stroll is into Q3 for the moment. Lando Norris, though, he comes to the line and goes 6th in the McLaren. Romain Grosjean, where does he go? P9. That puts Stroll down to P10. Carlos Sainz comes to the line. He goes P7. Kimi Raikkonen, he will come to the line. Where will Kimi Raikkonen go? Oh, he's out in P11. That's disappointing. Very disappointing for Kimi Raikkonen. Pierre Gasly's in the top 10 in P8. That puts Stroll out. Antonio Giovinazzi goes P11 and out qualifies Kimi Raikkonen. Great job by Antonio. Daniel Kvyat, 14th. And that is it. As Albon goes 2nd for Red Bull. But that is it for Q2. Qualifying 2 is over. And let me just do the text there to say that Q2 is over. So there you go. Q2 is over. And the finishing order is Lewis Hamilton P1, P2 at the very end was Alex Albon. He had to go out Albon because he was at risk of getting knocked out. Vettel P3 and then Leclerc P4. You have to say that Mercedes, I think, have the better car so far. We'll see, of course, in Q3 how it fares, but at the moment, it looks as though Lewis Hamilton is looking good for pole position. Valtteri Bottas has ended up in P5. Again, though, that's not setting the grid for the top 10. That's only just to get through to the top 10. Max Verstappen is 6th. And then Lando Norris is in P7. P8 is Carlos Sainz in the other McLaren. So both McLarens through. And illustrating again why they've had such a great 2019. Pierre Gasly in P9 and with Renault down in 15th and 16th. That is a great position considering that Toro Rosso are not far behind in the constructors. And Romain Grosjean also through. I said in the build-up that Romain is very good at Suzuka and he's proved it again. But out in Q2, Antonio Giovinazzi in P11. Still, though, he did very well to out-qualify Raikkonen at this race. Hopefully can carry that through later on in the Grand Prix. Stroll P12. You know what? That's a good qualifying position for Stroll. I think that's his highest qualifying of 2019, possibly. Raikkonen 13th. Not good enough, considering he was in the top 10 after the first run. P14 is Daniel Kvyat, and then 15th is Hulkenberg. There you go. That is qualifying 2. And now we get set soon for the third and final part of qualifying. But again, people going crazy over Albon being so high up. Please remember, it's only Q2, so doesn't set the grid as of yet. And we're seeing replays, further replays of when Robert Kubica and I think when Kevin Magnussen crashed as well. But again, qualifying 3 is a 12-minute session. And that will be getting underway in probably 2 or 3 minutes' time. But guys, in the chat right now, let me know, has your prediction for pole position changed after what you've seen so far in qualifying? Let me know in the chat, who do you think is getting pole position? Is it Hamilton? Is it Bottas? Is it Leclerc? Is it Vettel? Let me know in the chat. Elton Joshua says Lewis Hamilton. Marcel says Hamilton. David Peck says Bottas. Astro Stevo says Hamilton. Lim Reynard says Hamilton. Simon Cragland says Hamilton. Matt Stanek, has your opinion changed, Jazz? He asks. Yeah, it has. Based on what we've seen so far, it has. I don't think Verstappen can get in the top 3. I just don't think Red Bull have that quick a car. And I think Mercedes are a lot more competitive than I thought they would be coming into the weekend. Yeah. I'm not sure I'd say that I don't think Leclerc will get pole, but again, Mercedes look a lot stronger than I thought they would, as we're now currently in that period of the calm before the storm being the 12 minutes, the final 12 minutes of qualifying. And I might as well now get the text ready. So there you go, remaining in Q3. By the way, this man on screen, can we just, shout out how great Carlos Sainz has been as of late. In Russia, nearly perfect with how he drove. You could argue he was perfect in Russia. He was so good. And as of late, and in 2019, Carlos has been one of the best drivers in Formula 1. And if he can keep that up and McLaren keep improving, watch out for Carlos Sainz. He could be the next Spanish race-winning driver in Formula 1 after, of course, Fernando Alonso. Yeah, watch out for him in this qualifying session even, because he could bring a surprise if one of the top runners doesn't quite get the lap together. Yeah, smooth operator. Indeed, he is a smooth operator. As on Sky F1, which of course is how I watch Formula 1, they're looking at Lando Norris on his Q2 lap for some reason. I don't know why. But he actually finished ahead of Carlos Sainz at the end of Q2. So quite good there for Lando. I think they're just showing his lap as we have maybe a slight delay to the start of Q3. I don't know. And then they're showing him on the run down to 130R and the final chicane. Let's see how we did, if they're going to show it. And Norris, yeah, just handled the end of his lap absolutely fine. The one thing I have noticed for Lando with his laps, he's pulling very far to the inside over the finish line to get the shortest possible run. So smart thinking by Lando, who is of course a very smart guy. As now we wait for the drivers to come out on track to get this fight for pole position underway. And as actually we wait, hold on, is the timer going to go? Don't know. Oh no, the timer has actually started. I'll have to sync it up in about a minute's time, as we now have less than 12 minutes to go. But quickly, so my throat can survive pole position and all that stuff for qualifying as Pierre Gasly comes out. I'm going to quickly have a drink and then I'll be back at it. And now we have the shootout qualifying finally underway as Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton out on track, and so is Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz, and now soon to be Charles Leclerc in the works Ferrari, and then Sebastian Vettel in the second works Ferrari. And I'll sync up the timer right now. So there you go, 11 minutes to go in qualifying 3. Let's see who will get pole position. It's really between 4 drivers: Bottas, Hamilton, Vettel, Leclerc. I'm not sure Verstappen can do it, but Max might be able to get on the second row if mistakes are made ahead, as Max comes out on track. Albon and Grosjean, though, still in the pit lane for some reason. So maybe they're only going to go for 1 run, I don't know. As we're watching Max Verstappen, of course, he is basically the home driver for this weekend because he is most likely the man who is going to get the best result for Honda. And maybe even, who knows, a race victory later on. Crazier things have happened. As Valtteri Bottas now exits Spoon on his outlap and now comes up to 130R. And what Valtteri needs to do here is bang in a good lap early on, because if you notice, earlier on in 2019, his good qualifying performances have been when he's got a very good qualifying run in the first run of qualifying 3. So Valtteri, if he wants to get pole, he's got to get this lap absolutely right, as he now starts his final, or not final, but first run in qualifying 3. Let's see what he can do as he flies into turn 1. That Mercedes looking so good on turn in. And now goes into the S's and attacks the S's, which you've got to do. And now goes into Dunlop. And yet, the car looking great in terms of its turning. And for the end of the first sector, he does a 30.5 for the end of the first sector. That's a very good first sector time. Lewis Hamilton, though, goes slightly quicker. And Valtteri locks up with a hairpin, but he goes slightly wide, but that won't compromise him too much. As Valtteri now comes up to Spoon. He's got to absolutely attack this corner. And he does. And the car at the rear end, that Mercedes looks so good. And at the front end as well. As he now comes up to the middle sector, does Valtteri Bottas. And does a 1:10.1 for the middle sector. Very good middle sector. Valtteri. Lewis Hamilton, 4/10 down on Valtteri. Valtteri clumped the inside cover. The first part came very hard, but now comes to the line. Can Valtteri go P1? Well, of course he will. He does a 1:27.6. Great first run. Lewis Hamilton goes P2 by just over 1/10 of a second. Here comes Carlos Sainz, who goes P4 behind teammate Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc comes to the line. Can Charles Leclerc put on pole? Yes, he can by 1/10.5. But what can Sebastian Vettel do as he comes to the line? And Sebastian Vettel on pole by 0.3 of a second. It's a Ferrari front row as Max Verstappen exits the final corner. And Max Verstappen goes P5. 0.7 of a second down. That's a new track record, by the way, for Sebastian Vettel. A 1:27.212. It's a Ferrari front row. And Vettel is out front by 0.3 of a second. That's the old Sebastian Vettel there. As Albon now rounds the final corner. What can Alex Albon do? He goes P6 with a very good lap that's only 1/10 of a second off of Max Verstappen. That is exactly what he needs to do, pace-wise, compared to Max Verstappen. Very good there by Albon. Yeah, Ferrari at the moment are on the front row. So let me update the order with 6.5 minutes to go in qualifying here. Vettel is currently P1 with one final run to go. Charles Leclerc is P2, sorry. Valtteri Bottas is actually P3. And then Lewis Hamilton in 4th place. I think Hamilton must have made a mistake in the middle sector because he was faster than Valtteri in the first sector, but then 0.4 off in the middle. So he must have made a mistake, Lewis Hamilton. And then 5th and 6th, the two Red Bulls looking quite quick compared to Bottas and Hamilton, who are only just ahead of them in lap time. So Verstappen P5. And then it's Albon P6. And then Norris, Sainz, Gasly and Grosjean as it is. But again, one final run to go. So it's not over yet. But you have to say that Sebastian Vettel, I think, probably has pole position. Because 0.3 of a second to your teammate, that's a lot to make up unless Leclerc made a mistake on his lap. That is a lot for anyone else to make up in one run. And here we go, replay of Bottas locking up at the hairpin. And that did cost him probably a tenth and a half. So Valtteri could probably get it on the front row. But yeah, Ferrari have finally showcased their speed. But can this man on screen, Charles Leclerc, can he take the pole away from Vettel? We'll see in about 5 minutes' time once qualifying comes to its crescendo. And here is Leclerc at the final chicane. And a bit of instability at the rear, but I think that's the wind. But nothing really that wrong with Leclerc's lap. So I think Sebastian was just genuinely much faster on that first run of Q3. And on track now, by the way, is Romain Grosjean. So obviously Romain is only going to do one run at the, whilst the other drivers are in the pits. As the two McLarens are over a second behind the Red Bulls. Just shows you how far ahead the top teams are on a track that's not that long. As mechanics in the Mercedes pits are waiting to get Valtteri and their drivers back out on track. We're now looking at Max Verstappen, who did a good first run, and so did Albon. Verstappen only a tenth off Hamilton, and Albon only a tenth off Verstappen. So both Red Bull drivers are looking good. They're doing the best they can, I think. Verstappen was a tenth and a half quicker in the middle sector, and I think again that points towards Hamilton having made a mistake in the middle sector that we haven't seen for some reason. But I'm sure we'll see it eventually, as Red Bull are about to bring their cars on track. As we've got Norris, Sainz, Gasly, Grosjean on track. Romain Grosjean is actually at the moment on a lap. We're not seeing it, but he is on a lap as Valtteri Bottas is about to come out on track. And also here comes Sebastian Vettel. Currently with one final run to go and 2.5 minutes to go. Sebastian Vettel is on provisional pole as Romain goes P8. Good first or only run of Q3, I guess. But the two McLarens and Pierre Gasly have another run to correct that. But at the moment, as I was saying, this man on screen, Sebastian Vettel, has the provisional pole by 0.3 of a second. And it's going to be very hard to beat that lap of Sebastian Vettel's 1:27.2. A new track record. So yeah, going to be hard for Valtteri, Lewis, Max or Leclerc to stop Sebastian getting yet another pole position at Suzuka. Sebastian has 4 poles at Suzuka already. And if he gets it here, then that will be 5 pole positions at Suzuka. And that's more than Lewis Hamilton has ever had, if he does get it. As the top runners are now into the spoon and are about to start that final run. As we're looking currently at, I think, Alex Albon. Is that Albon? No, Yes, it is. Alex Albon, who has done a good first run. Hopefully, he can maintain that in the final run as Charles Leclerc starts his final run of qualifying. Can Charles Leclerc get another pole position in 2019? Let's see as he starts the lap on the pit straight. DRS wide open, run down to turn 1, throws that Ferrari in. And he has to try and get pole, because if he doesn't, it's going to be very hard for him to win the race. And he absolutely is throwing the cars into the corners, trying his absolute utmost to get pole. And go through Dunlop and the car looking great. And for the end of the first sector, Charles Leclerc is 3/4 of a tenth up on Sebastian Vettel. Purple first sector for Charles Leclerc. As Max Verstappen has also done a very good first sector as well. But what will Vettel do for the first sector? Sebastian Vettel is almost 2/10 up as Gasly goes P7 in the Toro Rosso. And Leclerc now throwing it into Spoon as Norris goes back up to P7. Charles Leclerc now exits Spoon and now starts his run to 1:30R. And he is up by just under 2/10 of a second on Vettel. Can he do it through the final chicane? Bit of understeer on exit, but comes through now that final chicane as Charles Leclerc opens the DRS, and Charles Leclerc, no, he misses out by 1/2 tenth. Leclerc is P2. Here comes Max Verstappen. He comes to the line and stays P5. Did not improve that final sector. And here comes 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel. Goes even faster on a 27.0, and surely that's pole position. Here comes Alex Albon. And Albon almost out-qualifies his teammate. Actually, Albon did the same lap time as Valtteri Bottas. P3. Lewis Hamilton comes to the line. P4. So there you go. There is qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix. It is Sebastian Vettel on pole position for the 5th time in his career. Leclerc is 2nd, Bottas 3rd, Hamilton 4th. And the 2 Red Bulls on the 3rd row did the exact same lap time. Big credit there to Albon. Very good performance, and that is what I want to see from Alex Albon if he wants to be in that Red Bull. And then it is Sainz in P7, Norris P8, Gasly P9, and Grosjean P10. Let me just do that. Correct that. P7 and P8. Go Carlos Sainz in P7. And in P8 is Lando Norris. So, quickly, before I come off, this is the grid for the Japanese Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel is P1, Charles Leclerc is P2, Valtteri Bottas 3rd, Lewis Hamilton 4th, 5th is Max Verstappen, 6th is Albon, 7th is Carlos Sainz, 8th is Lando Norris, P9 is Pierre Gasly, P10 Romain Grosjean, P11 Antonio Giovinazzi, P12 is Lance Stroll, 13th is Raikkonen, 14th is Kvyat, 15th is Hulkenberg, 16th Ricciardo, 17th Perez, 18th Russell, 19th Magnussen, and last of all, of course, is Robert Kubica. But guys, because my qualifying, or my race watch along rather, starts in 2 hours and I need to get the qualifying review out very soon, I'm afraid I have got to go. So guys, thank you very much for coming to this stream at what is a very hard time, I know, to watch qualifying, but thank you guys for watching. Great to have you all here. Again, do not forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for the race watch along that starts in just under 2 hours time. So you guys can wait in the stream until it starts. I will schedule that stream as soon as I can, which hopefully should be around 4 AM UK time. So don't forget to subscribe, hit the notifications bell for that, like this video, comment down below what you think, and also follow me on Twitter, like my Facebook at ChazzaHDF1, check out my website, ChazzaHD.com, and don't forget to join the Discord. That is the best place for notifications of my videos and streams. But guys, until my qualifying review in about half an hour and my race watch along at 10 past 5 a.m. UK time. And also, if there is a delay to that starting because I'm not ready, I'll let you guys know in the chat of that scheduled stream. Until then, guys, it has been me, Hazard HD. Goodbye.